Hey everybody, my name is Payton Wallace, and today we're going to be reading Exodus 22 to 25. Let's get started. Exodus 22. Whoever steals an ox or a sheep and slaughters it or sells it must pay back 5 head of cattle for the ox and 4 sheep for the sheep. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. Anyone who steals must certainly make restitution, but if they have nothing, they must be sold to pay for their theft. If the stolen animal is found alive in their possession, whether ox or donkey or sheep, they must pay back double. If anyone grazes their livestock in a field or vineyard and lets them stray and they graze in someone else's field, the offender must make restitution from the best of their own field or vineyard. If a fire breaks out and spreads into thorn bushes, so that it burns shocks of grain or standing grain or the whole field, the one who started the fire must make restitution. If anyone gives a neighbor silver or goods for safekeeping and they are stolen from the neighbor's house, the thief, if caught, must pay back double. But if the thief is not found, the owner of the house must appear before the judges, and they must determine whether the owner of the house has laid hands on the other person's property. In all cases of illegal possession of an ox, a donkey, a sheep, a garment, or any other lost property about which somebody says, "This is mine," both parties are to bring their cases before the judges. The one whom the judge declares guilty must pay back double to the other. If anyone gives a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or any other animal to their neighbor for safekeeping, and it dies or is injured or is taken away while no one is looking, the issue between them will be settled by the taking of an oath before the Lord that the neighbor did not lay hands on the other person's property. The owner is to accept this, and no restitution is required. But if the animal was stolen from the neighbor, restitution must be made to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the neighbor shall bring in the remains as evidence and shall not be required to pay for the torn animal. If anyone borrows an animal from their neighbor, and it is injured or dies while the owner is not present, they must make restitution. But if the owner is with the animal, the borrower will not have to pay. If the animal was hired, the money paid for the hire covers the loss. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price, and she shall be his wife. If her father absolutely refuses to give her to him, he must still pay the bride price for virgins. Do not allow a sorceress to live. Anyone who has sexual relations with an animal is to be put to death. Whoever sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner, for you were foreigners in Egypt. Do not take advantage of the widow or the fatherless. If you do and they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will be aroused, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives will become widows, and your children fatherless. If you lend money to one of my people among you who is needy, do not treat it like a business deal. Charge no interest. If you take your neighbor's cloak as a pledge, return it by sunset, because that cloak is the only covering your neighbor has. What else can they sleep in? When they cry out to me, I will hear, for I am compassionate. Do not blaspheme God or curse the ruler of your people. Do not hold back offerings from your granaries or your vats. You must give me the firstborn of your sons. Do the same with your cattle and your sheep. Let them stay with their mothers for 7 days, but give them to me on the 8th day. You are to be my holy people. So do not eat the meat of an animal torn by wild beasts. Throw it to the dogs. 23. Do not spread false reports. Do not help a guilty person by being a malicious witness. Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you give testimony in a lawsuit, do not pervert justice by just siding with the crowd. And do not show favoritism to a poor person in a lawsuit. If you come across your enemy's ox or donkey wandering off, be sure to return it. If you see the donkey of someone who hates you fallen down under its load, do not leave it there. Be sure you help them with it. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Have nothing to do with a false charge, and do not put an innocent or honest person to death, for I will not acquit the guilty. Do not accept a bribe, for a bribe blinds those who see and twists the words of the innocent. Do not oppress a foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt. For 6 years you are to sow your fields and harvest the crops, but during the 7th year let the land lie unplowed and unused. Then the poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what is left. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days do your work, but on the 7th day do not work, so that your ox and your donkey may rest, and so that the slave born in your household and the foreigner living among you may be refreshed. Be careful to do everything I have said to you. Do not invoke the names of other gods. Do not let them be heard on your lips. 3 times a year you're to celebrate a festival to me. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days eat bread made without yeast, as I commanded you. Do this at the appointed time in the month of Aviv, for in that month you came out of Egypt. No one is to appear before me empty-handed. Celebrate the festival of harvest with the first fruits of the crops you sow in your field. Celebrate the festival of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in your crops from the field. 3 times a year, all men are to appear before the sovereign Lord. Do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me, along with anything containing yeast. The fat of my festival offerings must not be kept until morning. Bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. See, I'm sending an angel ahead of you to guard you along the way, and to bring you to the place I have prepared. Pay attention to him, and listen to what he says. Do not rebel against him. He will not forgive your rebellion, since my name is in him. If you listen carefully to what he says, and do all that I say, I will be an enemy to your enemies, and I will oppose those who oppose you. My angel will go ahead of you, and bring you into the land of the Amorites, the Hittites, Perizzites, Canaanites, Hivites, Jebusites, and I will wipe them out. Do not bow down before their gods, or worship them, or follow their practices. You must demolish them, and break their sacred stones to pieces. Worship the Lord your God, and his blessing will be on your food and water. I will take away sickness from among you, and none will miscarry or be barren in your land. I will give you a full lifespan. I will send my terror ahead of you, and throw into confusion every nation you encounter. I will make all of your enemies turn their backs and run. I will send the hornet ahead of you to drive the Hivites, Canaanites, Hittites out of your way, but I would not drive them out in a single year, because the land would become desolate, and the wild animals too numerous for you. Little by little, I will drive them out before you, until you have increased enough to take possession of the land. I will establish your borders from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. I will give into your hands the people who live in the land, and you will drive them out before you. Do not make a covenant with them or with their gods. Do not let them live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me, because the worship of their gods will certainly be a snare to you. Chapter 24. Then the Lord said to Moses, Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. You are to worship at a distance, but Moses alone is to approach the Lord. The others must not come near, and the people may not come up with him. When Moses went and told the people all the Lord's words and laws, they responded with one voice, Everything the Lord has said, we will do. Moses then wrote down everything the Lord had said. He got up early the next morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he sent young Israelite men, and they offered burnt offerings and sacrificed young bulls as fellowship offerings to the Lord. Moses took half of the blood and put it in bowls, and the other half he splashed against the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read it to the people. They responded, We will do everything the Lord has said. We will obey. Moses then took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, This is the blood of the covenant that the Lord has made with you, in accordance with all these words. Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, And the 70 elders of Israel went up and saw the God of Israel. Under his feet was something like a pavement made of lapis lazuli, as bright blue as the sky. But God did not raise his hand against these leaders of the Israelites. They saw God, and they ate and drank. The Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay here, and I'll give you the tablets of stone with the law and commandments I have written for their instruction." Then Moses set out with Joshua his aide, and Moses went up on the mountain of God. He said to the elders, "Wait here for us until we come back to you. Aaron and Hur are with you, and anyone involved in a dispute can go to them." When Moses went up on the mountain, the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai. For 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. To the Israelites, the glory of the Lord looked like a consuming fire on top of the mountain. Then Moses entered the cloud as he went up on the mountain, and he stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. Chapter 25. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me an offering. You're to receive the offering for me from everyone whose heart prompts them to give. These are the offerings you are to receive from them: gold, silver, and bronze, blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and fine linen, goat hair, ram skins dyed red, and another type of durable leather, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense, and onyx stones and other gems to be mounted on the ephod and breastpiece. Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them. Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you. Have them make an ark of acacia wood, 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out, and make a gold molding around it. Cast 4 gold rings for it and fasten it to its 4 feet, with 2 rings on one side and 2 rings on the other. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. Insert the poles into the rings on the sides of the ark to carry it. The poles are to remain in the rings of this ark. They are not to be removed. Then put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law, which I will give you. Make an atonement cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits long and 1.5 cubits wide, and make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold at the ends of the cover. Make 1 cherub on one end and the second cherub on the other. Make the cherubim on one piece, with the cover at the 2 ends. The cherubim are to have their wings spread upward, overshadowing the cover with them. The cherubim are to face each other, looking towards the cover. Place the cover on top of the ark, and put in the ark the tablets of the covenant law that I will give you. There, above the cover between the 2 cherubim that are over the ark of the covenant law, I will meet with you, and I will give you all of my commands for the Israelites. Make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits long and 1 cubit wide and 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold, and make a gold molding around it. Also make around it a rim, a handbreadth wide, and a gold molding on the rim. Make 4 gold rings for the table, and fasten them to the 4 corners where the 4 legs are. The rings are to be close to the rim, to hold the poles used in carrying the table. Make the poles of acacia wood. Overlay them with gold, and carry the table with them. And make its plates and dishes of pure gold, as well as its pitchers and bowls for the pouring out of offerings. Put the bread of the presence on this table, to before me at all times. Make a lampstand of pure gold. Hammer out its base and shaft, and make its flower-like cups bud and blossoms of one piece with them. 6 branches are to extend from the side of the lampstand, 3 on one side and 3 on the other. 3 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms are to be on one branch, 3 on the next branch, and the same for all 6 branches extended from the lampstand. And on the lampstand there are to be 4 cups shaped like almond flowers with buds and blossoms. 1 bud shall be under the first pair of branches extended from the lampstand, a 2nd bud under the 2nd pair, and a 3rd bud under the 3rd pair, 6 branch in all. The buds and branches shall all be in one piece with the lampstand hammered out of pure gold. Then make its 7 lamps and set them up on it so that they light the space in front of it. Its wick, trimmers, and trays are to be of pure gold. a talent of pure gold is to be used for the lampstand and all these accessories. See that you make them according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. Exodus 25. Thank you.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to Fear into Faith Global Bible Revival, where we are passionate for people to read the Word of God themselves. I am Summer Day, and I'm in the studio with Payton Wallace. Payton Wallace, dressed to the nines, looking so good today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Will you tell everybody just, a little bit about you and where you're from and what you do?
Sure. My name is Payton Wallace, and I am 23 years old. I am from Dallas, Texas. I've moved 23 times, so I've lived in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, North Carolina, Washington, and now back to Texas.
And you've been to all 50 states too, right?
I have been to all 50 states. So I have
amazing.
Tons of stories and recommendations of a lot of good places to eat. I love food. I am owner of a digital marketing agency called C45.
Nice.
And I love God, love Jesus, love my family and my friends. And that's all you need to know about me.
And drop mic.
And done.
That's great. You are such a fabulous young man. I know I've gotten to talk to you a little bit lately, but you're inspiring on so many levels. So I'm excited to see what we're going to unpack right here, because I know you've got lots of stories. You're starting being an entrepreneur when you're 5. You've been to 50 states. I know you've overcome adversity. So I know we're going to get to a lot of that stuff. I do have to say, okay, just on a little bit of a silly note here, how often do you get asked if you're related to Ron Howard? Because that's the first thing we said when we got you in studio. We're like, look, it's young Ron Howard.
To be completely honest with you, I haven't heard it until in the studio today, and then I haven't stopped hearing it since being in the studio today. But not often.
He's a smart guy. He had a great career. Maybe you've got more of a career in film and TV than you know so far.
I will take it as a compliment.
I love it. Last week in the studio, we had your mom and your dad. Absolutely incredible human beings. I love that they were like, man, you got to get our son in here. And here you are 1 week later, happy to have you.
Happy to be here. They just sang your praises and just loved being on the show and loved everything that you guys stand for. And so, with everything that they said, it was a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't I want to get,
Well, that is my question is, what made you say yes? Why do you think this is an important project?
A rule that I follow in my life is that if I hear a whisper, just follow through with it. Do it. And so the moment that my mom was telling me about the Bible reading, for some reason, I remember we were getting sushi right after she had finished the reading and had done the interview and everything, and we got sushi because they don't come in town that often. They've got a ranch out in East Texas, and I just heard a small whisper that was like, Payton, you're probably going to get asked to be on the show, so just do it. So, just follow in the Lord and follow in his calling, and especially on the call with you prior to getting to hear a little bit more about the story, about the mission, about the vision, about everything that's you guys are wanting to accomplish. It's just something that I'm also passionate about and happy to get behind.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And why do you specifically think it's important for people to be in the Word of God themselves?
Yeah. It's more than just reading it. It's more than just a good book. I find it super interesting, especially with what I was reading today. We were talking about how the Ark of the Covenant was constructed, and there was a lot of gold that went into it. Yeah. And so it's like twofold. It's read it, because the more that you read it, the more that you're in the Bible and in the Word, you're going to see it also be fulfilled in your life. Mm-hmm. You're also going to see, your core values change, what you stand for change. But I also like being in the Word because you never know what you're going to read. You never know if you're going to get a how-to tutorial on how to build an Ark of the Covenant using gold and the different inlays and where the ring should go. I mean, they laid it out step by step. Yeah. But I just think it's so interesting. And for any guy that wants an action and adventure movie, just read the Bible. It's like...
That's what I'm saying.
There's love and romance and Proverbs and Psalms and worship and drama.
And there's also Gladiator, there's...
All of it.
Killing, there's all the stuff that people look for in movies. You're right.
So I think it's the greatest book of all time because you get everything, literally everything. Amen. So a way to live your life, and a little bit of drama.
And a little bit of drama. I'm finishing reading it my fourth time, and there's still times when I read things and I'm like, whoa, I forgot that was in there.
It gets really intense sometimes. Like the Bible is not rated PG.
No. My 10-year-old's been reading it. In fact, I will literally catch my 10-year-old up at midnight with her Bible. Like kids try to hide something. She's like almost under the covers with the flashlight, and it's the Bible. What do you do as a mom? I'm like, you were supposed to be in bed 2 hours ago. Oh, you're reading Revelation. Well, okay, could you go to bed now?
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm reading it, I'm like, my 10-year-old's reading this. But why would I stop her? I feel like she has that draw and that desire. What was it like being in the studio and reading today for you?
I loved it. It was great. I will have to say, though, that previous to reading, I had to go through all of it. I was like, I can't pronounce half of these kings' names or these lands of, Israel and all of this stuff. Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to say it confidently.
Yes, because most people, who can do it? I cannot pronounce all the names. Most people, we can't pronounce the names, right?
It's all a translation, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we all have different ways we say words and speak. So
yeah,
that's how I say it.
And that's what we wanted to accomplish with the show is
right.
I have people, it's like, you don't have to be perfect. We're not getting a scholar that's been studying the word for 75 years, that has all the degrees. We want just a lot of just regular people in here.
I promise you, I haven't been studying it for 75 years.
Yes, I've done math, and that is true.
Yes.
That's true. Well, let's talk about a little bit of your, faith journey. So you were raised in the church?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And has it always just been raised in the church, no struggles, no nothing, everything's...
Well, you know what they say, the pastor's kid, they always end up just fine. Right? They're always...
I've learned recently that that's not a thing, apparently.
Really?
No, I didn't know
that. Well, yeah, so that wasn't my story. I was basically a pastor's kid, with my parents in full-time ministry. We called it, best way to put it is ministry in the marketplace. Just being in a family that they didn't confine ministry to the four walls of a church.
Yes.
Ever.
Good.
And so being raised in that with my faith and our religion and what my parents believed in being weaved into everything, I had really great examples.
Yeah.
But, you can tell a kid, hey, don't touch the hot plate. But what is he going to do? He's going to touch the hot plate. And so I was told, this is the way to live. This is, how the rules that we follow. This is, the relationship that you have to have with God. And I saw my parents have such a relationship with the Lord. But when I was about 16, 17 years old, it got to the point to where I was like, well, it's exactly that. It has to be a relationship. And the only reason I have a relationship is because my parents have a relationship. And that's not religion. I had to have my own relationship. And so part of that was, well, I don't have one right now. And so when I was 16, 17 years old, I really had to figure out, okay, who is this God for myself? Yeah. Who is the Lord? What is this book that I'm reading? Do I actually believe in it? Do I actually think that every word that's in this is true? Because that's one of the requirements, is you've got to believe that the Bible is holy. And so I had to take a step back, and I really just researched for myself and was like, do I even believe in this? Wow. There was such a moment of disbelief because I wanted to prove that this is what I believed in. And it's really, really hard to prove faith.
Yeah.
It's really hard to prove something that you can't see. Mm-hmm. And so as a 16, 17-year-old, everything is changing.
Yeah.
Everything is different. Yeah. And part of that was a real faith journey for me. And
I'm going to pause you there because got to take a break really quick. So we're going to take a break and we will be right back. And we'll pick up where we left off with Payton Wallace. See you soon. Wow, that is...
Science fiction fans, how does a teenage boy from Ohio become king of the Milky Way? Find out in the new action-packed sci-fi book and audiobook series, Richard, by author Michael W. Hickman. With famous author DNA in his blood, Hickman weaves engaging and thrilling sci-fi stories in Richard, Distant Son, Richard, an unlikely love story, and Richard, the Dragon's Curse. Search those book titles now on Audible and Amazon.
That's unbelievable.
We are back. Thank you for being here. And we're going to hear a little bit more about your journey. You said 16, you started really going, you know what? I got to figure out this relationship myself.
Yeah.
I got to figure out if I do believe that the Bible is true. And that's kind of where we left you off.
Yeah, I actually remember the moment that I had decided that that's what I wanted to follow, that God was my God, that, you know, that I
Wasn't just the God of your parents, but you were like,
was
no,
mine.
this is mine.
Yeah,
Wow.
this is my relationship. I used to carry around this backpack. It was like, I was all about Bear Grylls, survival, Survivor Man, like all of that stuff, prepping. I mean, I had this backpack that was filled with anything and everything that you could ever need. Like, I had food, water, knives, rope, cloth, tents, emergency, like the bug out bag, exactly.
Okay.
And I used to carry it with me like everywhere. And I was going to this, it was kind of like a young adults 3-day event type, not a summer camp, but basically close. And I had this backpack with me because literally I took it everywhere with me. It stayed on my back. It was this really nice Oakley backpack. I loved it. And this youth pastor who I did not know pulls me aside, and I did not have the backpack on me at this time. And he comes over to me and says, do you have a backpack? And I was like, yeah, it's got everything in it. How'd you hear about my backpack? And he said, God has told me that you have a backpack filled with the wrong things. Wow. And in my head, I'm like, well, no, this is actually filled with everything that I need because in the case of a zombie apocalypse or some type of, I was the guy to know because I knew that I could survive. Yeah. I just wanted to be that guy. Okay. And the youth pastor said it's filled with the wrong things. And so I went and grabbed my backpack and I showed him. I was like, no, I've clearly got everything right in here. He goes, no, not that backpack. The other one that's on your back, that's holding you down, and the weight. And it was that correlation that made sense to me. Wow. It was, okay, I'm trying to hold way too much. At the time I was running my own business. I was trying to figure out what religion was for myself. That's the pinnacle time of puberty. So my face was breaking out. I was insecure. All of these different emotions and things that a teenager going to his early adulthood is trying to figure out, I was carrying in my own backpack. And it was when he told me, you have too much in your backpack and you need to learn to give that up. It's taken me 5 years to figure out how to give that up, how to truly take off the straps and say, okay, God, these worries, these troubles, these insecurities, they're yours, truly yours. Yeah. And that was the relationship that I needed to have with Christ more than it's just a good book. I go to church to worship and I live a good life. Yeah. It truly was, when I have anxiety, when I have fear, when I have these troubles, I'm going to take off my backpack and give it to you. Wow. Even though I think those things are mine because I can deal with them. I'm strong enough. I'm smart enough. I'm enough to handle my own problems, my own troubles, but you never will be. Wow. Like you never will be strong enough to hold all of that because it's too much. Yeah. And that's why God has said, cast your cares upon me. Cast your cares, cast your worries, your anxiety. Amen. And that was the relationship between that and just seeing my parents have an unreal amount of faith and developing that faith journey myself. Those two things is what led me back to what I believe in.
You know what? One of the reasons I love this story right now is because, we try.
You can check out the rest of this interview right here or by going to BibleRevival.tv. And if this show has blessed you, you can help us bless others by partnering with us for as little as $20 a month and help us to expand the reach of this show. We'd also like to invite you to join our Kingdom Discipleship Program, where you have an opportunity to get on weekly Bible Zoom calls with us and people around the world to deep dive into His Word. And you can check all that out at BibleRevival.tv. I'll see you next time, my friend.